Welcome to DCC Students Research Podcast. I'm Dylan Magnata, and I will be reading Michaela Speckman's research report. Today, I will be talking about my experience with the FDR Library and Museum, located in Hyde Park, New York. The FDR Library is a treasure trove of information, and one area that I learned about that I want to share with you is FDR's involvement with the New Deal and the outcomes it had on our country. I went to the FDR site myself with my classmates and got to experience the many resources and antique sites the library museum has. They have an actual voice recording of FDR himself, who would record his meetings at the events. They have all of his very many documents, over 50 million, documents and exhibits that explain that his entire presidency and what has happened in those times. You can find anything on things like him as a boy, him as a tree farmer, him as an assistant secretary of the Navy, and as the governor and the president. Along with that, you can find any information on his collections, books, ships, stamps, his challenges with polio, his campaigns, his 4 terms, his management style, his legacy, his speeches, and anything with the presidential library system. As well as known, Eleanor Roosevelt was the First Lady of the United States. She had a very important partake in our history. The FDR Library gives us very many resources on her as well, including her as a girl, a young woman, the First Lady of the United States. As the First Lady of the world, her works with the Red Cross, her works with the United Nations, her works on civil rights, her works on women's issues, her work at Valkill, her travels, her My Day column, her books, and most importantly, her legacy that continues to this day. But don't forget all the information we can find on the events that occurred during the Roosevelt times. Along with all the physical resources we can find at the library, they do have a website as well. The website offers digital collections, documents, photographs, audio and film, and an online book catalog. They even offer research support services and research grants. The FDR site is a great resource and an amazing experience. But let's get into what we're talking about today. The New Deal was a series of domestic programs and policies implemented by President Franklin D. Roosevelt in our country between 1933 and 1939. It was a response to the economic hardships and social challenges brought about by the Great Depression, which began in 1929. The farmers were not making any money due to the demand being so low. There was too much of each type of produce being grown. He decided to create the New Deal, which made each farmer be mandated to grow a certain type of produce. 1/3 of all farmers' land had to be left open to leave the demand at a lower rate, but also to keep the fresh soil available. Farmers started making money, while the workers were being laid off due to less land being available for growth. At this time, whites owned the land and the blacks worked on their farms. Overall, he wanted to succeed in ending the Great Depression, which we will get more into. The Great Depression was a severe worldwide economic disintegration symbolized in the United States by the stock market crash on Black Thursday, October 24, 1929. By the time that FDR was inaugurated president on March 4, 1933, the banking system had collapsed. Nearly 25% of the labor force was unemployed, and prices and productivity had fallen to 1/3 of their 1929 levels. Reduced prices and reduced output resulted in lower pay, dividends, and profit throughout the economy. As the FDR site shares, factories were shut down, farms and homes were lost to foreclosures, mills and mines were abandoned, and the people went hungry. It was a national, seemingly never-ending cycle of crisis. At the height of the Depression in 1933, 24.9% of the total workforce, or 12.8 million people, were unemployed. Farmers technically were not counted as unemployed. That didn't stop the drastic drops in farm commodities prices, which resulted in farmers losing their lands and homes to foreclosure. People began to migrate, searching for a better life, or even just a job. Residents of the Great Plain area, where the effects of the depressions were intensified by the drought and dust storms, simply abandoned their farms and headed for California in hopes of finding the land of milk and honey that seemed to be no ways out of the chaos. In his speech accepting the Democratic Party nomination in 1932, Franklin D. Roosevelt pledged a new deal for the American people. if he was elected following his inauguration as President of the United States on March 4, 1933, FDR put his New Deal into action, an active, diverse, and innovative program of economic recovery. Within the first 100 days of his new administration, FDR pushed through Congress a package of legislation designed to lift the nation out of the Depression. Following that, he declared a banking holiday to end runs on the bank and create a new federal program administered by what we call alphabet agencies. For example, a few like the AAA, which stabilized farm prices and thus saved the farms. The CCC provided jobs to the unemployed youth while improving the environment. The TVA provided jobs and brought electricity to rural areas for the first time. The FERA and the WPA provided jobs to thousands of unemployed Americans in construction and arts projects across the country. And the NRA sought to stabilize consumer goods prices through a series of codes. There are many different alphabet agencies that he created, through employment and price stabilization, and by making the government an active partner with the American people, the New Deal jump-started the economy towards recovery. The question is, did the New Deal successfully fix the Great Depression? Were the farmers and unemployed citizens able to fix the mess they were in? Roosevelt's New Deal recovery programs were based on various, not always consistent, theories on the cause of the Depression. Many of those programs contributed to the recovery, but since there was no sustained macroeconomic theory, which John Maynard Keynes' general theory was not published until 1936, following the 1937 recession, Roosevelt adopted Keynes' notion of expanded deficit spending to stimulate aggregated demand. Come 1938, the Treasury Department designed programs for public housing, slum clearance, railroad construction, and other massive public works. Although these were all pushed off by the board by the mass public spending stimulated by World War II, war-related export demands and expanded government spending led the economy back to a full employment capacity production by 1941. The DCC Ritz Library provided me with even more information and good articles finds while doing my research. One article pointed out to me What the New Deal Did by David N. Kennedy. Kennedy pointed out that these New Deals' extensive government interventions and social programs, such as Social Security and the Works Progress Administration, provided much-needed relief to the suffering American populace, addressing the huge economic challenges of the time. However, he also highlights the criticism that the New Deal faced. That includes concerns about the expansion of federal power along with the long-lasting impact on the country's fiscal policies, some of which I would like to also talk about. He states, what is more, much mythology and heated rhetoric notwithstanding the New Deal that did not sustainably redistribute the nation's income. He states, what is more, much mythology and heated rhetoric notwithstanding the New Deal did not sustainably redistribute the national income. America's income profile in 1940 closely resembled 1930 and, for that matter, 1920. In 1935, FDR pushed a 79% marginal tax rate on any income over $5 million. This rate only applied to a singular person in all the United States, John D. Rockefeller. The basic rate remained 4%, and even that applied to a decided minority of Americans. Until the wartime, Revenue Acts hugely expanded federal tax collections. Fewer than one American household in 20 paid any income tax at all. Through lots of research and studying on this topic, I believe the New Deal was needed in our history regardless of the outs. There may be negative backlash, but there is no way to prove what did worsen the Great Depression besides the fact that it happened. The New Deal provided resources and ways out for the citizens. Although the New Deal was criticized by many both in and out of the government, and seriously challenged by the United States Supreme Court, it received an overwhelming support of the people. Franklin D. Roosevelt was the only president in United States history to be elected for 4 terms of office. In complete agreement with the FDR site, the Great Depression tested the fabric of the American life as it has seldom been before or since. It caused Americans to doubt their abilities and their values. It caused them to despair, but they weathered the test and as a nation emerged stronger than ever prepared to take on the new challenges of a world at war. As you can see, the FDR Museum offers important information for anyone interested in history. I encourage all DCC students and others to visit the FDR Museum and Library in Hyde Park, New York, and check out their online resources. Thank you for listening, and thank you to the DCC sound design students for their production work.